Okay, so there's a very good chance that I'm going to wind up with a flushed face and will probably blush a lot for this episode. Not for any natural embarrassment, and it's not even due to the fact that, as promised, this is the first episode where I'll be covering a band with a female lead singer. What might make me blush is the singer herself. Maria Brink is essentially the metal version of Lady Gaga, except I prefer Maria's role, and she is just so much sexier. Okay, I have a type, what can I say? I like girls/women with curves, tattoos, and really good personalities to them. It's just a thing. Anyway, in this moment I've been around for roughly 12 years and have been making waves as one of the most well-known female-fronted metal bands to set foot onto the earth. And I'm going to tell you about the big steps and the missteps. That was a weird metaphor. Anyway, it's time for backtracking, and this time it's in this moment. In a moment. We begin with their debut album, Beautiful Tragedy. Another episode where the band's first album isn't self-titled. Who says that I can't at least be semi-consistent with these things? Anyway, In This Moment's first output was released in 2007 through Century Media Records and was produced by Eric Rachel. Fun little side fact, this is the only ITM album produced by Eric, as the band would later recruit Kevin Churko from the second album onward, who is possibly the best producer in modern metal in my opinion. That's just me. In This Moment's debut was a little bit rough around the edges. It's not terrible, but considering how far the band have gotten in more recent years, it's pretty much just kind of an above-average album. It's also their shortest at just shy of 42 minutes in length, but not a lot of that time is wasted. As mentioned, this album is kind of rough to listen to, and it seems the band's heaviest work with more traditional metal and metalcore elements. I can safely say that Maria screams the most on this one, and while she does sing, she hadn't really found that balance yet. Granted, I only got into the band around like 2012, 2013, so that's the era that I'm used to hearing them. But she seems almost scared to sing normally on this album. Granted, her clean singing on their debut sounds pretty average when you compare it to how much more rangy her voice is nowadays, but she can still sing either way. Her screams are pretty good, but once again, she hadn't found that balance quite yet. In fact, her screams are probably more high-pitched on this album than on any of their others. She screams and sings when she needs to, which is good, but I couldn't help but get the feeling that she was holding back a bit. She could have benefited from letting loose, especially with her cleaner singing. And besides that, she does a really good job lyrically, bringing up topics of faith, broken love, and relationships with family members, which we'll get more into later. The instrumental work isn't too bad, with Chris Howarth being a great guitarist with awesome dreadlocks, providing a couple of fast-paced solos and some really good intro riffs. His fellow Axeman is Blake Bunzel, provides a good joke with the rhythm guitar playing along well enough with Chris. Bassist Jesse Landry has a good presence at the album, which only occasionally gets drowned out. And the drummer Jeff Fab, which is just a really awesome name, is really good behind the kit, providing some good old bass work, which gives the most traditional feel of the modern metal style of the album, I think. Standout songs include Prayers, Next Life, The Great Closer, and When the Storm Subsides, Circles, and my favourite, in Daddy's Falling Angel. Falling, not fallen, just to clarify. Beautiful Tragedy is a perfectly fine start, marred by a short running time, rough production, and Maria's vocals sounding too afraid to come out into the light. I can kind of give this a recommendation despite its problems. It's kind of like that, it's thumbs diagonal, shall we say. So let's move on. Next we move on to the sophomore for In the Dream. Sorry. I forgot that I got this present from one of my mom's workmates. It's kind of awesome. Anyway, coming out around a year and a half after Beautiful Tragedy, The Dream is the first album to feature Kevin Churko as part of what would be a beautiful partnership for all of ITM's future albums. The Dream is pretty good. In fact, Kevin becoming producer was the only change that the band made. All the members stayed on and they stuck with Century Media as the record label. It also has the first ITM song that I ever heard in their cover of Blondie's Call Me, but that was long before I would begin to actually like the band. I actually first heard that maybe 2008ish when it actually came out. So yeah. Or 2009, because that's when the cover itself actually came out. The album itself is also to transcend, with Maria taking on more clean singing. Reading up on the album, she said that she never got complimented enough on her singing as compared to her screaming, because the scream just came more naturally to her as a vocalist. But I seem to be the only one that compliments her singing if my talking about the debut earlier is anything to go by. But yeah, on this album she sings more. A lot more. It creates a little more balance for me. And Beautiful Tragedy, in my opinion, had too much screaming and not enough singing that didn't make Maria sound scared to show off a bit. But The Dream has her singing a lot more with very few screams. One could argue that she starts finding a signature singing voice on this album, with a little inflection showing through on some of the tracks. She does still scream, but it's not until nearer the end of the album. In fact, with her singing Claymore, she even plays piano on the album. Sure, she could always play it, but there was none of it present in Beautiful Tragedy, and it suits the much more softer tones of The Dream. Well, I say softer mostly due to Maria's vocal performance focusing on singing, as I said for the fifth time in this paragraph, but what but that does not mean that a lot is held back. It's a weirdly positive sounding album in terms of messages, with songs being thankful to loved ones, losing them over something, and relationships and the like. See, Taylor Swift, not all of your songs have to be about boys that screwed you over. Take some notes from Maria, and I just might begin to like you. Anyway, yeah, The Dream steps up a bit more instrumentally, but before I talk about that, I want to mention that this album feels like the album by this moment started to truly find their core sound. They hadn't fully found it yet by this point, but they were experimenting more, from Maria with a voice to the other members with their respective instruments. There are some solos at the start of the album, but Chris really does start focusing more on his technicality. I will say that I like the solos that he does do, because when it comes to metal, the solo has to be really off the rails and not sound too much like the song, but just enough like it to stay in structure, and Chris pulls that off brilliantly, I think. He does not get enough credit. Blake lends some good breakdowns on the rhythm guitar, Jesse's bass has a bit more presence this time around, and Maria's vocal work and piano playing is great. And Jeff Fab improves mostly on his speed as a drummer, adding some amazing sweeps and fills here and there. Standout songs include the closing title track, Lost at Sea, Violet Skies, You Always Believed, and probably my favourite, The Great Divide. All in all, The Dream is a very good step forward and is a little bit more balanced than Beautiful Tragedy. It's where the band first started searching for that signature in this moment of sound, and I can respect them for that. I can also recommend the album. It might dip a little bit from time to time, as I mentioned, it's a bit softer, but it's still a really good listen, and I can recommend it. Next up is the third album, A Star-Crossed Wasteland. I just like that name. Released in 2010, sticking with Century Media as the label and Kim Fujioka as producer. It's also the first album to have a lineup change as bassist Jesse Landry left the band, being replaced by Kyle Conkiel. That's just a fun and difficult name to say. Anyway, the balance issues that the band had with their first two albums have been well buffed out by this point. There's a lot more to like about this album. Chief fact amongst them is that it features the song that kind of got me interested in the band, and that song is The Promise. Featuring Adrian Patrick from a band called Otherwise, my bestest friend forever, Scarlett, here's your shout out, actually introduced the song to me as a way to describe our then relationship. I kind of have to agree. The song itself is about the fact that no matter how much you try to fix things with someone, the promise is that someone will wind up hurt again. Shit just got real on Backtracking. Scar, on the off chance that you're watching this, I love you and please don't hate me for what I said. Yeah, back to the album. As I mentioned, it's got a great balance to it, striking that perfect equilibrium between heavy stuff and more melodic stuff. The album is memorable, accessible, and just really a lot of fun to listen to. Whilst Beautiful Tragedy was bogged down with trying too hard to be heavy, and The Dream had moments that almost put me to sleep at times, they were still good albums, but Star-Crossed Wasteland is a great album. The title, much like the lead singer, is not the only thing that's pretty about the album. There are so many amazing elements added through Casey's production, adding little echoes to the guitar every now and then and making them sound anthemic as balls with the breakdowns and guitar solos. This might be the first in this moment to actually have some genuinely really good solos and breakdowns, I think. It's certainly got more solos, and Chris Howe's guitar work is surprisingly technical. In fact, a lot of the instrumentation has that. It's a surprisingly technical masterclass, along with being fantastically produced, written, and performed. It takes the little bit of experimentation that explored in Beautiful Tragedy and brought that in full force. Also, Wasteland possibly starts the birth of what we know today as the signature in this moment sound, and this is before they started experimenting even more on their next two albums, which I'll get to in a moment. Maria Brink finally has that balance between screaming and singing nailed, and her now signature tone of singing is brilliantly captured. Chris and Blake play well together on their axes, working together for great breakdowns, rhythms, leads, intros, and solos, with the former having awesome solos and some really good backing vocal work. This is the first album to use backing vocals, actually, and he's the only one that does it then, but we'll move on from that. Kyle Conkiel is pretty good on bass, and this is his only album with him, I think. And Jeff's drumming is more faster paced and just hits harder. Standout songs include The Gun Show, The Promise, obviously, Staying Alone, The Road featuring Gus G, who's awesome, and my favourite in The Last Cowboy, where Maria actually starts using some spoken word vocals which just sound really nice. A Star-Crossed Wasteland is a landmark album for the band with great production, accessibility, and really good performances. I can definitely recommend this one, it's really, really good. We then roll right along with their fourth album, Blood, and I'm going to try and say that. I don't know how that happened, but I got a scratch on... There you go, you can kind of see it. Yeah, Blood. That was terrible. Released in 2012, the record label and producer are still the same. What has changed is the lineup. Sometime between Wasteland and Blood, Kyle, Blake and Jeff all left the band, being replaced by Travis Johnson, Randy Weitzel and Tom Hain respectively. Other changes include the usage of more backing vocals, gang vocals specifically, which just sound good, more experimentation, more theatrics here and there, and more balance in Maria's vocals, more personal topics in the lyrics. It's also the first album with the band started gaining more of a mainstream following due to one specific song, and I will get to that one specific song, don't you worry about that, just hold your horses, okay? Anyway, Blood is where Maria started to get, for lack of a better term, sexual, shall we say. To quote an actual critic and someone on YouTube who, someone's comment on YouTube while I was listening to the album stream the other day. In this moment, sound like an angry, aggressive, R-rated Evanescence. I am in total agreement with that. Maria's comparison of music being similar to drugs and sex for her is something that just sounds great. This is not a term that I use much, but the word eargasm should suffice here. Her voice has mastered her signature inflection by this point. She even starts swearing, making this, I think, the first In This Moment album to feature any form of curse words. Granted, dropping the odd F-bomb here and there still helps sell the messages of some of the sexier sounding songs, but it's still kind of a sudden change. It works though. As I mentioned, In This Moment are known for playing around with new things, and it often works for them. One thing that I do like about this album is that this is where they named their fandom, or bandom if you will, calling them the Blood Legion. They even named a tour that they did for the album after that. It's pretty cool how that happened, really. It's also the second album in a row to not feature an intro track that was about a minute in length. They kick things off on Wasteland with the Gun Show, which is almost 5 minutes long, and start things off on Blood with Rise With Me, which is just over 2 minutes, just around a little factoid that I want to share with you guys. Blood is the album that took what the band had found on Wasteland and said about improving upon it whilst adding more personal touches, adding more emotion, maturity, and sex to everything. Also, a quick drinking game if you have alcohol while you're watching this, which you might need to tolerate my ramblings. Drink every time I screw up, or say sex, or say album, or say band, say guitar, bass, drum, vocals, lyrics. I should make a drinking game of these. Yeah. The band started taking more risks, and it winds up being very rewarding for them. Chris doesn't have as many guitar solos, but he does a good job when he does get a chance to shine. And Maria's vocals and lyrics, touching upon her feelings about music, the industry of music, and the hypocrisy of people, step up, and the 3 new members fit in well. Standout songs include the title track, Adrenalize, Beast Within, The Great Pleasure, and 1111, which is Maria singing with no instrumental backup. And my favourite, In Whore, a song about finding your own power and pointing out the hypocrisy of the haters for a little bit. Say that's the one specific song, are you all happy now? Sorry. Blood is the album that brought the band more fans, making them more popular and adding some more elements of experimentation to their sounds. I can certainly recommend it. It's good. It's good. It's good. And finally, we reached their 5th and most recent album, Black Widow. Released in 2014, there are no lineup changes and Kimachoko stays on as producer, but one change is the record label, as the band would leave Century Media for Atlantic Records instead. There's more experimentation with the sound of this one, adding some quite nice sounding electronic, industrial, and gothic metal elements. Also, and I'm prepared for the hate for this, but this is the first album that I listened to in full by them, like when it came out. So yeah, I know I got into them in like mid to late 2013, and I never really got around to listening to Blood at the time, so my apologies. Anyway, in terms of emotion, this might be the hardest hitting. One thing that I failed to mention this whole time was about Maria herself. See, for those who don't know, story time. She became pregnant at the tender age of 15. In fact, her son is about the same age as me, which is kind of weird to think about. She basically grew up a single mom at 15 years old. Who would have thought that 10 years later she'd be fronting one of the best modern metal bands of ever, regardless of gender? Well, 10 years later. 20. No, 10. It's, you know what I mean. Yeah. You know, she fronts one of the best modern metal bands ever, regardless of gender. Despite all the shit that she went through, including losing her father early. Well, actually, that might have been for the better since he sexually abused her as a child. Damn, Maria's basically the real-life female version of Guts from Berserk, and she ain't afraid to show it. The album continues and expands upon the theatrics of Blood, and although there is no guitar solos, there's plenty of good breakdowns that lead into songs. The messages of said songs are possibly at their strongest. I don't think that I've ever heard Maria come across as more vulnerable or genuine or honest than on Black Widow, and songs such as The Fighter, Dirty Pretty, and The Closer Out of Hell are really good examples of that. Weirdly, one of my favourite tracks in the album isn't even an actual full song. It's called Into the Darkness, and it shows Maria having a conversation with a distorted male voice, insulting her and calling her mean things, for example, whore, and saying, she shouldn't have gone this far, and so on. It's possible that this voice symbolizes her father, and at the end, when she says that she forgives him before then breaking down into tears and having a slight depressive attack, a panic attack, sorry, that just punches you right in the gut. That is, whoa. I did not expect that. I didn't even take that into account when I first listened to it. Another thing I didn't notice until I saw it in the comments was the fact that on each album there's at least one song where the word believe is whispered at the end. I mean, it makes sense. Maria does have the word itself tattooed on her knuckle, so I really don't know how I missed that fact. She even finds a good balancing out between singing and screaming, and some spoken word stuff here and there, specifically on Into the Darkness. Also, she plays piano again, and it sounds awesome when it's combined with her signature, lovely dulcet tones. Chris and Randy provide some good chosen riffs in spite of the lack of any form of guitar style. Travis Johnson provides a good heavy bass. He's just a good bass player, I think, and I like the mask he wears. And Tom Hain puts in a good performance on the drums, even though this was his last album with the band, before he left in 2016, being replaced by current drummer Ken Dimmel. Standard songs include Sick Like Me, Dirty Pretty, Big Bad Wolf, Sex Metal Barbie, and possibly my favourite and awesome closeover is Out of Hell. The new elements that the band explore complement their sound greatly, and it all results in another greatly performed and written album. I just really like it. And so that's it for yet another episode of Backtracking. I'd have to say that my favourite might be Starcross Wasteland. It managed to find that signature sound and is still a good blueprint for the band's now signature sound. Experimentation all included. Least favourite, probably Beautiful Tragedy. It's a good album, but it tried too hard to be heavy in my opinion, and the band really hadn't found their identity yet at that point. Then again, it was their debut, so I am willing to give it a pass. That's really all I have left to say. Join me next time as we take another trip to the land of the rising sun. Next time I'm going to be covering Japanese dance punk rock band Man with a Mission. I'll see you all then, and thanks for listening. Also, if Scar is watching this, I'll give you the biggest hugs if I have, next time we talk, because you're awesome, and I hope all is well. Take care, everyone.